with that pick six. And you know what? Give it up to Kirk Cignetti and that squad, dude. They never really gave us that momentum back.
If our offensive line is getting beat like they stole something, get Rodgers out. Get him out because he's going to either get hurt or not be able to create the plays that we need.
In a complete pass-heavy offense. Take the run out and make them pass the ball to us.
All right, Dog fans, before we hop into the show, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and we appreciate the support. Thanks to our sponsor, Simply Seattle, we'll be picking out one lucky new subscriber to win free Washington Huskies t-shirt and hat. To enter, just subscribe, drop a comment below letting us know that you've done it. You can be out there flexing that new Husky drip, that new Husky swag in no time. Plus, don't forget to check out Simply Seattle's QR code at the bottom of the screen, which will take you directly to their website for all your Washington Husky apparel needs. Good luck. Go Dogs. Thank you for everything.
Welcome to the Dub Dub Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Blunt. We're reeling after another loss to Indiana, 31-17. I only got my guy Noah today with me. Izzo is off away on business. He'll be back next week. Noah, man, this was a rough one. How are you feeling after what felt like a drumming, especially in that second half against Indiana?
Yeah, bro, this is a game you just kind of look at. And I mean, people have heard me say it before, but this is a game where you just kind of tip your cap to Indiana and go, they were the better team on Saturday. You watch that game and you just really say, I thought we would have, coming off the bye, I thought we'd be able to go in there and have a better showing. And you know what? I mean, if you think about that, right? Like, you could ask yourself, if you don't have that pick six, does the game maybe go a little different? It seemed like they kind of grabbed momentum with that pick six. And you know what? Give it up to Kirk Cignetti and that squad, dude. They never really gave us that momentum back.
No, they were really good at stopping that momentum. You're right. We were about to put them in a position they hadn't been in all season long. They hadn't been trailing or anything. And we were going down to do that. And that was one of the most painful turnovers I've seen as a Husky fan, because I really felt like we had the momentum in that game, at least at that point. Yeah. And then when you look at the way the rest of the first half played out, it still felt like we were in that game. It still felt like we could do something. And then when that switch at halftime that Cignetti did, where he said, you know what, screw this, I'm going to start pounding the rock.
On the rock. Yep.
And that's how you wear us down, because the truth is if our offense can't score, our defense can only hold up so long. And you got to admit, Stevie B was pulling rabbits out of his hat. The stop on the goal line,
yep,
was amazing,
dude. Absolutely.
And we just couldn't find our way back after that.
That stop, that was a 19-play drive. 19 plays, bro.
That's so crazy.
We end up holding them to a field goal. And then, if you remember, you come out in the second half and you got big boy Jacob Bandes with the pick, right?
That was awesome.
Dude, and you go down 17-14 and you're right back in the game. But what happens right after that? The next drive, they go 14 plays, 75 yards. They go up 24-14. And we actually end up getting a 9-play drive together right after, but we end up punting. And once again, UW can move the ball very well in between the 20s. We get in the zone, we get in the red zone, whatever it is, and we just can't execute enough to get touchdowns. And
that's real.
It's been our kryptonite, man.
Yep. I feel like we were worried about the offensive line really being exposed in this game. And, it was crazy. Vamahi had maybe his worst game as a Husky.
Yep.
And we saw it across the line, except for, who I thought played really well, though, was Tafai. Yeah, and I'll get into that when we start breaking down players. But it was a lot more of the same old. And it sounds like fans are kind of getting sick of it, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, man. When you look at this game, I think you just really start to question. I put this on my Twitter, and I never want to be like a prisoner of the moment guy. You see a lot of fans coming out of games, or even in games. It's at halftime, and you're like, "We suck. We're gonna lose. We're never gonna win another game." And it's like, okay, let's pump the brakes. And you guys have heard me say it, man. I mean, Will Rogers being a 5th year, 6th year type guy. You look at him, and it's he gives you everything you want from like a leadership standpoint, an experienced quarterback, a seasoned quarterback. I mean, he does all those things. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, right? I mean, I think he's still over 72% completion percentage. The big thing with Will that I'm going to say, I mean, I just don't know if he doesn't have the elite talent traits to make the mistakes that he makes when it comes to like decision making.
Mhm.
And I mean, a great example is you remember when I think it was like 4th and 4, 3rd and 4. I think it was 4th and 4. He had an opportunity to scamper and get a first down. It looks like if he just keeps running straight, he will
Yep.
like fall so that he'll fall over the first down line. But instead, he tries to do like a cutback. Tries to jump over a guy, goes straight up in the air, straight back down. And it's like, Will, those plays are what guys like the cutback is what a Damon Williams does. Why? Because he has the athleticism and the traits, those elite traits to make that guy miss. Will, I promise you, since your 9th grade year playing football, you haven't made too many cutbacks, man. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yep. You're 100% correct.
just get the first down. And the thing is if you can't get the simple plays and do the simple things, the problem is you sometimes think we maybe got to go to the younger kid here who has those elite traits. It's almost like take the lumps now because he's going to be better next year when Will's, gone on, ideally, hopefully playing on Sundays. You know what I mean by that? It's just,
Yep. No, I think you're 100% correct. I was talking with my brother about this. I don't think Will is a bad quarterback. I think if you were to take quarterback traits and measure them up, he probably is better than Damon as far as
sure,
in regular circumstances. But under the circumstances we're playing in, with the offensive line that we have that's struggling the way that it's struggling, Damon might be better suited with his skill set to run this offense, because if we don't have a quarterback that can get away from the rush, it's going to hurt us in a lot of games like we've seen. And that run that you're talking about on 4th down was a perfect example of it. Damon Williams gets that first down just because of what he does athletically. And I think that's what you're starting to hear coming from Husky Nation. So beyond the high-level thoughts, let's start getting into what our highlights and standout players are, because I think that everybody that watched that game is saying the same kind of things that we're saying right now. You know what I'm saying? Because it was rough. So if you're looking at players that stood out to you for the Dogs, I know there's not a lot of them, but who stood out to you?
Yeah, from an offensive side of the ball, he had 4 catches, 60 yards receiving, average about 15 a catch. That's Jeremiah Hunter. We finally, started targeting him, a little bit in the passing game, and it's something that I think a lot. I think the announcers even talked about it. They're like, when he came over from Cal, we kind of looked at him at Washington that he'd be a lot more involved in the offense, and you saw it kind of early with him, and I thought he put a nice little game together. I mean, I think 3 of his catches were for first downs.
Yep.
And I just think that having that big body receiver in a game like this was key. I thought he actually played well. The other person that he only had 2 carries, but I'm telling you, he's the truth, man, is Adam Muhammad. 2 carries for 11 yards. Nothing crazy special per se, right? But just 2 very hard runs that you can look at and go, hey, that kid has the base, has the awareness and the eyes that when he goes from 2 carries to 22 carries in a game, you see that he will just continually, add to his skill set and just kind of be that next like ground and pound you see at UW.
Yep, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think his counterpart, Jonah Coleman, showed a lot. He got 19 carries, which I was happy to see. Just a little bit under what we were hoping. Just a little bit under what we were hoping. But he had over 100 yards. The no touchdowns was hard. But you know what? There were so many plays that should have been stopped in the backfield that he just made a play happen out of it. Whether it's his athletic ability or just straight power, Jonah Coleman has been literally one of my favorite players, not just this year, but as a running back, one of my favorite running backs since Myles Gaskin was here.
Yeah, and he equates for 47 missed tackles this year. And I mean,
that's insane.
He must have had 8 against Indiana alone, man. I mean, because you're spot on. He was Barry Sanders in the backfield, man. Just hand off. Oh, get out of the way right away. I mean, he played great, man. I mean, 104 yards, 19 carries is legit. What do you think about the offensive line, Mike?
So there's a couple things that I had to like. I said earlier, Vamahi had his worst game as a dog, and that was rough. But there was some lights in this. Tafai came in, and his PFF pass blocking grade was 82.1. He graded out higher than any other player on UW's roster. I think Coleman was 2, but number 3 was Landon Hatchett, who had like a 74.7 grade. And so those are things that with left tackle, we've been worried about this all year. To see a guy come in there and actually do well against a really good, I mean, that defensive line, I don't have my notes in front of me from the game, but I think it was wearing number 5 or number 8. Their defensive tackle was just a beast. The guy that tipped the ball when Rodgers threw the interception.
Yep.
He was a monster. So to see like Landon Hatchett get in there and actually hold his own against him, and then Tafai I thought Tafai looked really, really good in the plays that I saw. And I'm hoping Jed plays him the rest of the season at left tackle. I think that is the left tackle of the future.
Yeah, it looked like, I think I saw a stat that he played 29 snaps and so did Fa'asalo. And you know why that's so encouraging to me is because it's showing that he's starting to get into a more, maybe not a full game preparation, but that they can rely on him to go full drives or back-to-back drives per se. And I think you probably see a lot more against USC than we saw even against Indiana.
Do you think he'll split time with McCree when he comes back?
Man, that's tough because I don't really know if I have an answer for that question. I will say this. Did you notice when we finally put a very nice drive together? I think it was the touchdown drive they were up 14-0 and we finally scored to go 14-7. Did you notice that offensive line that was in during that?
It was Tafai and Hatchett, and Vamahi was out, and Fa'asolo was out.
Yeah. So it went Tafai and then guard, and then TT Ali, and then at the right guard was Hatchett, and then Azopardi. And it's like, I'll tell you, man, we're going into the 10th week, but I'll tell you, man, so that might have been the most complete offensive line unit I saw all year. And
I agree.
And you start to look at that and go, I understand the injury situation we're in, but it's like, man, we've been asking for, Jed, put that cohesive unit together that you feel comfortable with. It seems like in his press conference, he's not fully there yet, but it's like, man, that unit together, dude, they kind of had their way with that Indiana defensive line and the linebackers too. When they were bringing blitz, they picked everything up. It just seemed like we finally had that unit. I just hope going forward, man. I mean, especially you look at USC, you got Penn State, Oregon, UCLA. You got to have that cohesive unit as we move forward.
You know who also graded out in the top 5 as far as pass blocking goes was Henning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I'm curious to see, because I know TT Ali did not. He did not grade out in the top 11. Fa'asolo was number 11 with a 58 point something or 56 point something. And so what I'm wondering moving forward, because we've talked about Henning playing center. We've talked about him playing guard.
Yep.
Maybe he is somebody that needs to get a little bit more PT, because I know we do a lot of rotating already anyway. But as we're looking forward to next year, those are players that I think are going to need those reps. So when they come to play next year regularly, they have that under their belt and can draw from that experience.
Yeah. Before we move into the defense, Mike, I wanted to ask this. I mean, you kind of quickly mentioned it. I mean, you're seeing Twitter, you're seeing, the other podcasts, talking about it. I mean, do you think it's time for Damon Williams to completely take over? Do you think that maybe we're at a point where it's like, maybe not take over full time, but, I think it's more than just the gadgety plays, 10, 12 plays a game. Do you think it's time to say, hey, here comes the second quarter and we're going to give this drive to Damon? What are your thoughts there?
Man, so this is the hard part. Of me wants to see us just hand the ball to Damon. I feel like there's always a spark when Damon comes in that I feel we just don't have with Will Rogers. That being said, I also know we've only seen a limited amount of what his skill set is. So I think if our offensive line is getting beat like they stole something, get Rogers out. Get him out, because he's going to either get hurt or not be able to create the plays that we need. We need somebody who creates that extra option. Like when we're in 3rd and short or 4th and short, and we have Will Rogers, they know there's only 2 things coming. You add Damon, now they have to pay attention to a third thing, and they start getting back on their heels. And that's something that if we want to win games, we have to keep them guessing, and we haven't been able to do that, especially towards the end of games with Will Rogers.
Yeah, especially with Will too. When you get into those like third and longs, the unfortunate piece is, I don't want to go back to the Michael Penixes, but it's like when you had Mike had the arm strength and the talent and the actual willingness to throw the ball in those tight windows. I don't think you have that with Will, especially when it comes to arm strength. And I actually think that's one of the big pieces we're seeing as we get into the red zone. All the windows tighten up, and it's like it's hard to actually make the throws when you don't have one of those like big boy arms. And that's just the reality of who Will is. I mean, there's quarterbacks in the NFL that don't have those monster arms, but they're efficient and they make all the exact pre-snap reads they need to make. Right.
Well, and I was saying this last week too. One of the things that really stood out is not just that arm strength from the pocket, because I think from the pocket he can make a lot of the throws. It's once he gets moving, his ability to get zip on the ball just seems to go away.
Yeah.
And I think the skill set puts him in a position where he can be on the move and make those passes. Because if you look back to the USC game last year with Penix, that throw to Culp in the back of the end zone, he was on the run. That was an amazing throw, and you have to have the arm strength to be able to do it and the athleticism. The problem with Will is he doesn't seem to have the athleticism to run away from defensive ends.
Yep.
And then when he does, he just doesn't seem to be able to deliver the ball accurately and with the arm strength to make a difference. Let me ask you this. If you were the coach, would you be starting Damon or Will?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask a question to answer my statement, I guess, right, is who gives me the best shot to beat USC? I actually think Will Rogers probably does that because I think that USC has a ton of talent. But where I'm going with that is I think that you need to start to integrate Damon in a more drive heavy like scenario. So you need to give him drives. That's the best way I can get out of the 1-play gadget, 2-play gadget, 3-play gadget. Give him a drive and see what he can do.
I agree.
That's the best way I would answer that.
And when we get to USC, we'll get into a lot more of this. Let's switch the sides of the ball. If you're looking at the Husky defense, I tell you what, I was texting with you guys about this during the game because it seemed like whenever the first 3 quarters of the game, whenever we needed a stop, we got it. I mean, Stevie B and that defense stuck their head in. I'll tell you what, the linebackers, especially in that first half, had such a better game than they did the week before against Iowa. Let me ask you this. Who stood out to you defensively for the Dogs?
Yeah, it's funny. We called out Deshaun Lynch, and that's not so much my player of the game or anything like that, but it's like, dude, he had a lot of big tackles in the game. I think he ended up with 3 unlimited snaps, but dude, he was a big force on that fourth down stop where we ended up making him kick a field goal. But I think it's tough to go away from Zoe, man. Dude, Zoe the last couple of weeks was a little, I wouldn't say quiet, but he kind of was just doing his normal lunch pail thing, came to work, did his job and left. I mean, that brother was working overtime on Saturday. I mean, I think he ended up with 14 tackles and 10 solos. Dude, he had Eddie numbers from last year this past week. But man, I mean, dude, he was all over the field. You know who else played well? Didn't get tested a ton, but was Ephesians Prysock.
Yep.
Prysock played well. I think he had 2 pass deflections and 5 tackles. But I mean, he really exuded his length in that game. And you know what, man? We kind of heard about this daunted wide receiver room, and not that Tevin Jackson or in Indiana in general really needed to throw the ball. I mean, they ran 188 yards, and Justice Ellison, that guy,
as a beast.
As the game went on, man, he was just an absolute load, and you could tell guys started going making some business decisions. Tackling this dude is a little tougher than we thought, But where I'm going with that is, I mean, dude, they only had 11 catches. And once again, man, I mean, it's
127 yards, I think, is all we gave up.
Yeah, 124, 120, something like that. But yeah, man, I mean, our secondary played well again. But yeah, Zoe would definitely be my player of the game, man. I mean, he seemed like he was just all over the place. Go ahead.
Okay.
Man. What do you got?
For me, first of all, there's a couple guys that I'm going to be my honorable mention. So, McKellis Steen, I think he had 11 or 12, 13 tackles. 7 solos. I'll tell you what, I used to think last year, I'll be honest, and I don't like to use this word a lot, but he was kind of soft.
Okay.
This guy came in looking like a big time safety, making hits. And then Carson Bruner had another 11 tackles himself. Like I said, our linebackers really came to play, and so did a bunch of our safeties. Our defense as a whole, if you subtract that fourth quarter after they were just getting pounded, they looked really good and put us in a position where we could have won the game if our offense could just get the ball in the end zone. But you know who's going to get my player of the game? Big Jacob Bandis for that interception. I mean, that was one-handed. You could tell. Like I guess I was hearing he was the guy for years that's been like catching punts to see if they can get out of practice early and stuff like that. And he showed that he can make that interception. And that interception was huge. Like I said, if our offense just finishes the job, that interception goes down as maybe the biggest play of the game.
Yeah, let me ask you this thing about one of your guys. You said McKellisteen. So Cameron Broussard transfers in, and he ends up having like a foot injury this past week, 2 weeks ago. And so, he goes to bye. I think they had an opportunity to maybe get him back, but he just couldn't get right. Dude, McKellisteen, if you go back even 2 weeks ago and then this game, dude, he's playing himself into like that role where it's like, and we talked about this, I think on the preview and like other podcasts, he's playing so well, the coaches start to ask themselves like, can we take him off the field? Right?
Yep.
Remember we talked about it with like Cam Fab like last year. It's like, wait, we don't really have a spot so much for him. But wait, he's making all these plays. You can't take him off the field. And I feel like McKellarstein's like, once again, DBU, been slowly but surely learning from all these older heads. And now it's finally like, yo, this is my
Steen's he's from the Chris Peterson era, if I'm not mistaken. Or Jimmy Lake. I know he's at least Jimmy Lake.
Yeah, 100% Jimmy Lake. I think he's a redshirt junior. So, yeah, absolutely. He was recruited by Jimmy Lake. But my point being is just like, he's one of those dudes. He's like, I've waited my turn. And he has faithfully learned the game. But he's like, bro, I'm 6'1", 205 now. Like, dude, let's go. I'm not giving this back up, And you can tell by the way he's playing, and there ain't nothing soft about his game no more. He'll come and absolutely put it on you. So it's fun to see him stay the course, just keep the grind, and just actually see him come up with a 13 tackle game or whatever. I mean, just absolutely.
Yeah, 13 tackles.
Balling out there.
And he always had flashed as kind of a center fielder type. Like he'd have interceptions and stuff. They were big in big moments. Yep. But to see him actually take on the tackling role and do it like that, I was very pleasantly surprised because I didn't know that was part of his game. And he's kept a player like Justin Harrington off the field. Like he's been in uniform. I know he's played in almost every game on special teams. But he's not really seeing the field because other guys are making it too hard on him.
Yo, who, really quick, who's sleepy, like not really sleepy, but kind of sleepy just because they don't go after him? Dude, Thaddeus Dixon is like playing himself into, I mean, real talk, kind of like, yeah, I mean, he might get a tryout with an NFL team. Bro, he's like playing himself into like legitimately like getting like an invite to like the combine if he ends up going to.
He's CB1 or like material right now. He's playing and he's got the attitude to go with it. Is he a senior right now or is he a junior?
So it's funny you asked. So I was looking at ESPN right here as we're talking. He's a senior, but remember how like with this all like the COVID stuff and like I don't actually know if he's a senior in the sense of like he's a senior like he's done or he's a senior with another year. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he might have one more year, which I kind of think he does, but whatever it is, man. I mean, if he was decided to go out this year, I think he has like a legitimate shot at like getting drafted and playing at the next level.
He definitely has the size and mind state if he can test well, which nothing has led me to believe that he wouldn't. He's very aggressive. So sometimes you'll see receivers get behind him, even though it hasn't really resulted in many plays. But I think that's because of his aggressiveness, not because he has some sort of a lack of physical talent, which is what you worry about at safety.
Dude, I still remember a Thaddeus Dixon story. We were sitting front row at the spring game in the kind of corner of the end zone, and him and Rome were just going at it. This isn't this spring game. It was just 2 spring games ago. And real talk, dude, he locked up Rome on like 3 or 4 straight possessions, and they tried to get him the ball. I think 2 of those times too. And you could tell Thad was like, maybe not. He wasn't like a veteran, like crafty player yet. He was very athletic, but just didn't really have all like the like the little like minor skill sets you need to like be elite. But with Coach Rich, John, the DB coach now, I think he's getting that discipline and all those traits and learning all those things. So it's like he's taken the talent and athleticism that he had, and now he's actually turning into a no joke like lockdown DB. And I
And
think
he's being tested in fire right now. Like they're coming at him all the time, every game. He's getting a lot more action than Prysock is.
yeah, 100%. And I mean,
You know,
I don't, and I, you wonder, is that because of film? Is that because, does he just end up seeing like the other team's number one receiver more often, whatever it may be? But I'll tell you what, man, he's slowly but surely. I promise you, if you started looking at some like deep, like 7-round draft boards, I bet you start seeing that name pop up more often.
Yep. And like I say, he goes and tests well. Like if he runs a sub 4.4, all of a sudden he'll shoot up super, super high.
Yep.
All right. You have anything else with defense, or do we want to flush this game and move on to the next one?
Man, it's time to flush it, man. We got to get it. We got to go get a win versus USC. But more importantly, man, let's just put a full game together. We haven't put a full game together all year, man. It's time to do this next week. So it didn't happen in Bloomington like we thought it would. I think we're 0-4 on the road, but we're back home this week. So
Yep, we're 4-0.
Yep, exactly.
It sucks being 500. More losses than we've seen in 2 years here at UW. But we're also a lot of these kids are learning in the fire, and that's going to pay dividends down the line. As we look forward to the USC game, USC's been very much a Jekyll and Hyde team. They're 4-4 like UW. Last week, coming off a really big win where they kind of thrashed a team that beat us in Rutgers. They beat them 42-20. What I'm noticing is they're a lot different team when they have Marks in at running back. He didn't play in the Maryland game that they lost the week before, and it really changed the whole game for them. It's what makes me kind of worry about this moving forward is we've had trouble with really good running backs in strong running games, but it seems like Marks is a far different running back caliber than the rest of the backs on the USC roster. They also have Miller Moss, who's thrown for a whole bunch of yards. He looks like a USC quarterback. No, what do you think when you're looking at this USC offense? Because it's going to be a tall task for Stevie B and this defense to take care of them.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's a must-win game. If you want to get to that bowl game, if you want to get those extra 15 practices, and you kind of see how UW has done so well at home and then struggled on the road, this is an absolute must-win game, and I hope fans truly understand that. I hope Montlake is absolutely rocking on Saturday. But, this game is kind of fascinating in the sense of I don't think anybody, especially in the national narrative, thought USC would be 4-4 after 8 games. I mean, they have a ton of talent like they do every year. But, man, like I said, both teams are very different kind of on the road versus at home. Kind of an interesting stat, USC, every game they've lost has been a game where they were actually had a lead in the second half, and they ended up losing it.
Wow.
And I was trying to go like, well, okay, like, yes, that's an interesting stat, but like, what's the point there? I think them losing Bear Alexander is a lot bigger deal than people thought it was. Not so much in the sense as like he was making all these impact plays. I think what you see is they are really starting to wear down defensively as the games go on. And so oddly
that sounds kind of familiar.
That's where I was going is oddly enough, I think both of our teams, a talent on paper, I think they look a little bit more talented, but I think our teams actually match up are a lot more similar than a lot of people think so.
Yeah. It's funny when you look at what they do offensively, USC is who we think USC is. A bunch of athletes. They got a really big offensive line. I mean, they pushed around Rutgers, unlike we couldn't do when we were there. They pushed Rutgers around. I mean, Miller Moss spreads the ball around. They got 5 receivers with 25 receptions. Marks has over 755 yards and 8 TDs, averaging 5.7 yards a carry. I mean, they're doing a lot of really good things offensively. But like I said, they're a different team with Marks in the backfield than when he's not in the backfield. Yeah, and Moss has to throw a ball a lot more when he's not there.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Mike, is I think your point's spot on. I think they run the ball and they run the ball well. The weird thing is I'm not too sure that like the coaching staff actually trusts them to run the ball. Or it's like they get in their own bag and they feel like they have to throw the ball. Because obviously when you have Marks, if you remember right, he's that big time transfer from Mississippi State. He played with Dylan Johnson at Mississippi State. And and the other thing too is there was a lot of people thinking that Marks was either down to, I think, like UW or USC to transfer to. And Marks was one of those players where, I mean, he averages, like you said, 5 yards per carry. But you know what he does so well? He is a dynamic ball catcher out of the backfield, man.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. that's one thing where I think you see our defense really like exceed at is making tackles in open field. Like you see guys, catching the ball out of the field, but out of the backfield, but we haven't really been like hurt by that a ton. Maybe a couple plays here or there, but Marks is kind of one of those guys. Like he's the first, like I would say, like established, receiver out of the backfield that we're really going to see. And so I think that's something that, as we get into some of this defense and how we stop them, I think that's going to be one of the keys to is can we get Marks on the ground early?
He got 30 receptions on the year. So you're right. He was one of those one of those folks I was talking about that have over that 20 reception mark. Yeah, that when you're watching them being successful, that's really what they're doing. When Miller Moss has to throw the ball 50 times, they struggle a lot more. And maybe that's as we look at this offense and what UW's defense has to do to stymie them, it's the same thing that we had to do against Indiana. We got to get them behind the sticks. If we get them behind the sticks, they're a far less potent offense.
Yep. Absolutely, man. I mean, you look at Miller Moss, dude, he throws the ball an absolute ton, man. He's thrown the ball 312 times already. And for a little bit of context on that, Will Rogers is at 238. I mean, so that's what I mean when I say like these guys like to throw the rock, man. But the thing with Miller Moss is he's probably the first quarterback we're going to see that can like truly beat us with his arm. I mean, he can throw vertical with the best of them, but you know what?
He can.
With that vertical throwing, dude, he throws picks, man. He's had 6 picks on the year and 4 of them come on the road. So it's like one of those things where he can beat you deep, and you look at the weapons he has and all the vertical pass catchers he has. He has Lemon, he has Lane, Zechariah Branch. I mean, dude, he's got dudes all over the place. So we talked about a little bit last week with Indiana, when we talk about our secondary and, being top 3 in the country on yards per completion. And you boys are going to be tested again with the athletes you have on this USC side of the ball. So,
and you're going to have a lot more potent of a quarterback throwing it than Jackson was last week.
Yep. Big time.
So let's look at the Washington defense and not just what are we going to have to do, but who do we think is going to have to really, step up in this game? So what do you think of?
Yeah. So when I look at this game and we talked about, how potent pass, thrower Moss is and all the weapons they have on the outside. But I'm thinking about this actually a little bit differently because as you know, coaches, what are they going to do? They're going to watch film leading up to the game. And the last 4 games, we faced very run-heavy teams. But here you go. Rutgers, 184 yards on the ground. Michigan, 174 on the ground. Iowa, 220 on the ground. Indiana, 188 on the ground. And if I'm USC, I'm going, looks like these guys can be beat on the ground. Is it maybe not early? So maybe they come out with some heavy stuff, heavy passing early, but then late in the game, it seems like teams just wear us down because our depth. So I think this might be the game where you see Marks, get 15 to 18 carries. And for USC, I mean, that's an absolute truckload. I'm trying to go here, but it's like I don't think he's gotten many games over 15 yards, carries yet. So that's kind of what I think you'll see from USC. And how UW's going to have to stop that is he's a home run hitter off the jump. I mean, this guy is a stud, maybe one of the best backs we'll see all year. And I know we've seen Caleb Johnson, we've seen all these other big time guys, but Woody Marks to me is the most complete back we've seen. And I want to say this: if we can gang tackle him, get him on the ground, and make Miller Moss straight up beat us, I think taking them away from a little bit of a pass heavy, and I actually want to put them in a complete pass heavy offense. Take the run out and make them pass the ball to us. I think so.
Check this out. That was what Maryland did, even with Marks in. Marks went 17 for 82, which isn't bad, but it's not great. It's not like what he was doing against Rutgers. But they made Miller Moss throw the ball 50 times, and he threw only 1 interception and 3 touchdowns. But they ended up losing that game because it ended up being a shootout. And when we get into talking about the USC defense, we'll start talking about how they're not as bad as they were last year, but they're still suffering from the same problems. So I think you're onto something there, Noah. Like, if they can get them having to throw the ball, get them behind the sticks. I mean, I'm talking about maybe we start off early. It's hard because they're wide receiver talent, but like loading the box up and not letting them break those runs early. And we've done this against running teams. We just need the offense to score. Like I said, that's kind of the whole crux of this thing is that I think our defense has shown all year long that we can play against any of these teams in whatever they do. It's when we get into the second half, it's hard to maintain that, especially when we gotta have it. We have to be playing all of our best players the whole game. It's hard to keep rotations going when that we need to stop, and we needed that every single drive last week. Where if we can get in front of them and we build a touchdown or two lead, then we can start pinning our ears back and going right after the quarterback. And when I'm looking at like some of these losses, like I'm looking at the Penn State game right now. Miller Moss struggled. He threw the ball 34 times. Even though Mark still went over 100 yards, he had 20 carries, still went over 100 yards. They had to throw a lot because they were behind the sticks. It was one of those games where they had to catch up to Penn State. At least in the second half. I know in the second half that Penn State really started coming on.
I mean, when I look at USC, I think there's like two things you have to think of is, can you create turnovers? Can you put them in uncomfortable positions where they have to force throws? And I think that's where Miller Moss can kind of beat Gott, right? He, like I said, he has all the talent in the world, but how can Stevie B show him a bunch of pre-snap looks? We talk a lot about, how do you, maybe you go a NASCAR package and have 4 or 5 guys standing up right over top of him and maybe drop 2 and then bring a blitzer, out of the linebacker crew. That's how I think you get to Miller Moss, because if you let him sit back and just have his big offensive line, keep him clean all day, it'll be a long day for UW. And I think the big piece that we have to do is you need to see a lot of stunts from our defensive line. You need to see a heavy rotation of a lot of different guys. And I know we don't have a ton of guys, to kind of to rotate in, but you got to get those big offensive line moving horizontally. Don't let them get in their big vertical pass sets. Make them come after you, make them blitzes all of it, and put Miller Moss in very uncomfortable positions, because I think that's the way that you create turnovers. And that's the only way, in my opinion, that UW can win this game.
Yep. And I know Miller Moss against Minnesota struggled. He threw 2 interceptions and only 200 yards, going 23 for 38. And, Mark still had 134 yards in that game, though. So, I mean, if you can get the pressure to Marks, it seems like they can struggle. And I think as we move into what USC's defense is going to do against our offense, what I'm seeing in all of these games that they lost is in the second half, these offenses are scoring a lot of points on their defense. So like you said, they might be winning, but their defense wears down. And by the end of the game, they're giving up points and giving up points and giving up points. So our offense being able to sustain drives is what's going to hurt their defense. Do you have anything you want to add on USC's defense or Washington's offense before we move on? I mean, no, sorry, other way around.
Yeah, that's all right. No, let's do it. Let's get into some USC defense versus our offense and vice versa.
I got a question for you guys. Have you ever wanted to walk into Husky Stadium where there's 70,000 people and be the best looking person in the stadium? If you have, make sure you go to Simply Seattle, hit that QR code. Our good friends at Simply Seattle hooked us up and we look great. You see that QR code? Make sure you snap that, go check it out. Get all the Husky gear you want, plus Mariners, Sonics, Storm, all that stuff. Everything at Simply Seattle.
While you're at it, be sure to check out the Dub Discord community with over 2,700 members. It's the largest organized chat room for all things Washington Husky athletics. You want insider access? Our VIP membership unlocks exclusive chat rooms and rumors you won't find anywhere else. Hit the QR code on the screen and join the conversation today. Go Dogs. Thank you for everything.
All right. So
go ahead, Mark.
Go for it. I was going to say, if you look at our offense, our biggest struggle this year has been scoring in the second half. Yeah. Has been really trying to help our defense out. If you look at USC, they've had the same problem. So their defense is susceptible. And I think they're extremely susceptible to the things that we do well. They get torched in the pass game. And I think it's time that we start coming at them. I think Will Rogers or Damon Williams, whoever happens to be playing quarterback, needs to start picking these guys apart because they seem to play off. They seem to be guys that where they're going to give you stuff. And if we can get those dink and dunk passes, you're going to see us moving the chains and hopefully scoring. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the question I was going to say, is can we move the ball in between the 20s? I think Absolutely. I think we've done it all year. I mean, UW averages 6.3 yards per play, which is 21st in the country, but then we only average 21 and a half points a game, which is 97th. And it's hard for me to continue to each week go, can we execute when it gets in the red zone? Can we put a full drive together without having some sort of penalty? And for us to do that, it has to be like a full 11 players on the field consensus effort. But when it comes to looking at this Washington offense versus the USC defense and just something like very rudimentary is, I'm sorry, Jonah Coleman is our horse. He is Seattle's Slew. He is Big Brown. I mean, he's our horse, man. If we're going to the Kentucky Derby, we're taking Jonah Coleman, man. I mean, that's who's taking you to the promised land. And at some
And they're giving up 135 yards per game. So that makes sense.
At some point, man, dude, the numbers just don't lie. He is one of the best backs in the country. You got to ride him like that. He's 7 yards per carry. He's 4.5 yards after contact. He's had 47, 48 missed tackles on the field. The guy needs to see the ball in his hands 20 to 25 times a game for UW to be successful. And I'm sorry, the other piece is as you watch USC, they are talented. They have dudes all over the field, 4-star, 5-star guys. But man, the fact of the matter is, I don't know if it's what they're drinking in that LA water, but there is something that says once there's 6 minutes left in the third quarter, they start to shrivel, man. They start to shrivel. And they don't like tackling in space anymore, especially in their secondary. So if you want to let Will Rogers play his game where he'll just dink and dunk like you just said, Mike, up and down the field, dude, it'll be a long day for USC. Here's an interesting stat. Do you know that how much UW lives on yak? You know what yak is, right?
Yep.
Yards after the catch. Dude, out of the 2,200 yards that Will Rogers has thrown this year, 1,000 of them are yards after catch.
Oh, wow.
So
I think we know that because Will Rogers doesn't really push the ball too deep all the time.
Exactly. So he gets rid of the ball quick. But why does that? Why can I see that be successful against USC? Is because, man, I'm not sure they tackle that well in space.
That was their problem last year.
Yep. And we have enough athletes, man, to where I think that if we can get the ball out, let our athletes go to work. And here's the deal. I've said this for a while, but this is reality. If USC can't get pressure with 4, now, remember, Iowa got pressure with 4. Indiana got pressure with 4. And from a talent perspective, USC probably got enough talent on that team to get pressure with 4 as well. But if they can't get pressure with 4, I can see Will Rogers having a game where he throws the ball for 35, 40, 42 times, and we just go 7-yard clips, 11-yard clip, 5-yard clip up and down the field and say, hey, USC, can you tackle? And
you know what's the facts? USC only has 13 sacks all season.
Yep.
So they don't have a ton of sacks. So that would lead me to believe that they can't get pressure with 4. I think what you're saying is completely correct. I think to add on to that, UW needs to come out there and do something that the Big Ten teams have been doing to the West Coast teams all season. Be tougher than them.
Yep.
Go out there, and I mean specifically the offense, because I think our defense is tough as hell. But the offense and that offensive line need to go punch them in the face. I think pounding the rock and then dinking and dunking with the passes is going to put them on their heels really, really quick if we can just be disciplined, not get the stupid penalties, not make the bad mistakes, it's hard to say, but we just seem to screw up at the worst possible time. And it hurts us so bad. That pass on the goal line, it's a great play if it happens, but because he gets hit throwing the ball, everybody's like, oh, Jedd Fisch doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, that was us not being tough enough. That's all that was. And so if we can go and be tough and punch them in the face, they still deal with a lot of the same issues on defense that they've dealt with. And so there is an opening there for us to really get in there and win this game, take the game from them. And they're coming to Seattle. So we play well at Seattle. It's a great place to come and get back on the horse and get some confidence, especially as we go into a buzzsaw of the last 3 games,
The fact of the matter is, I mean, and this is the truth, man. We had Lofa Tatupu on our podcast last year, if you remember that. And USC, they haven't had a I'm tougher than you type team since like 2003, 2004, in those years when when Lofa was in the back, in that linebacker crew. They are susceptible to punch you punch these dudes in the face, dude, they'll fold. And that's just the reality of whatever for whatever reason. USC hasn't had those tough players that are like, we're gonna punk you. And I think losing like a Bear Alexander, like I'm saying, I think he had that swag and like he kind of ran that USC defense quite a bit. And now they got Nate Clifton and I forget the other big defensive tackle, Gavin Meyer, and they
Mhm.
got Kobe Pepe, and they got some big boys up front. But I'm telling you, if our interior offensive line could run down we're just first couple drives, just run the ball right down their throat and set the tone in this game. I think they can. I think when USC comes up to Montlake, UW can actually get that W.
Yep, that's kind of why I want to see a guy like Tafai in there. Is Tafai seems to have that nasty streak,
Yeah, he's
and
mean. He's mean.
yeah, I like, and that's what I think. I think our offense needs more of that. I think, like you said, there's so much talent and there's so much production because that's a big thing. There's lots of production. We just need something with that nasty streak. So when we go down there, we can punch them in the mouth. I mean, they're giving up 370 yards a game. Let's go take advantage of it, or they're coming up here. Let's go take advantage of it and make some plays happen and get us the W. Damn it, get us the win because we've been playing weak too much. And it's not like it's the hardcore part about it is I feel like we've outgained everybody in every game we've played, if I'm not mistaken.
Dude, I think we have.
And we have 4 losses.
Yeah,
2 of which shouldn't be losses.
The fact of the matter is, man, is yards don't win games, points do. You know what I mean? And it's like
that's real.
You can look sexy doing it, but if you ain't got the W at the end, who cares? You know what matchup is before we do our predictions that I'm very excited and we talked about him a little bit is I can't wait to see this Makai Lemon kid go against Thaddeus Dixon.
Yeah,
if you
or
look
the
at
Price Hawk.
or probably yeah. When Zachariah Branch came out of I think it was Bishop Gorman, he was kind of the hot recruit, high 4-star, 5-star type kid. And not that Makai Lemon wasn't, but it was just like I think everyone was like it was Zachariah Branch's team next. But dude, this Makai Lemon kid, man, number 6 on USC, dude, he's the real deal. I mean, he can beat you vertically, horizontally, upside down, inside out. Man, he is a tough wide receiver. And I mean, I'm just excited to really see us go against a true passing quarterback with the weapons they have and really see how our secondary holds up. Because
that's going to be the question. That is going to be the question. We're going to have to see them like against, like I said, these are the best athletes we've probably seen all season when it comes to in the passing game. And I have a feeling we might catch one early and then they start settling into what they do. But regardless, it's going to be a matter of us going in or them coming here and us being able to literally punch them in the mouth and get them reeling. If we get them reeling, I think we're going to get ourselves a win.
Yeah, I wonder if you see a little bit more jam coverage from our cornerbacks than we've seen.
I would do that.
Yeah. I mean, really, none of these wide receivers are really all that big. I mean, Kyle Ford's a big boy, but he kind of comes off the bench for these guys. But I mean, I'll tell you what, I would love to see. Let's see some jam coverage, little press coverage, and see if we can get these guys off their spots, and then we can have our safety help over the top. Just so you just don't give them free releases, because I'll tell you what, you give some of these boys just easy free releases, they'll make you pay. So it's going to be really exciting to see what our secondary can kind of do against this wide receiver.
And so I was thinking about the secondary, but I was also thinking about the defensive line too. Like because they have some big boys up there. Like I said, they pushed Rutgers around, and we saw what Rutgers' defensive line did to us.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, I noticed this last week. A lot of the smaller edges didn't play a lot, or they played on strictly like pass rushing downs. I saw a lot of Jaden Wayne, Deshaun Lynch. I know Durfee was hurt, so we didn't see a lot of him. Roy Tanufi. I wonder if that's what we're going to see against this big USC offensive line. Are we going to see more of these bigger guys? Because it's been proven that Big Ten play, we need to have the big dogs out there to be able to stop him. And do you ever heard anything about Durfee yet?
Man, the only thing I heard about Durfee was he's got like double turf toe now on both feet. Dude's just got absolute tough luck. I think it would probably be one of these. It's going to be one of these. In my opinion, this is nothing I heard on the inside. Nothing. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like if and when he plays, it'll be like probably shoot him up with a couple, in his foot,
cortisone shots.
Yeah, and then see how it reacts. If he can go, he'll go. If not, I mean, it's getting to the point now where I mean it's kind of, in my opinion, almost like Quentin Moore status,
Yeah.
in the sense of like, do you just shut him down completely and get him an extra year? It's
And we,
tough.
I mean, I don't even know if we can.
I'm
Yeah, I
sure.
don't know. I'm not sure how many games he's played.
I don't think he's played more than 4.
It's man, it's hard because it makes me feel like there's sometimes there's these players that are good, but they can't ever get past the injuries. And my question starts becoming: are they ever going to get past the injuries?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a real question, and it's unfortunate because I think Durfee has all the tools to be absolutely killer in the Big Ten, man.
When he plays, he's phenomenal.
You know,
When he plays, he's a beast.
and you can tell. I mean, the fact of the matter is, dude, you can tell, man. I mean, nothing against Void, nothing against Ward. I mean, all those guys, but it's like when Durfee's on the field, you just have that extra get up and go and playmaker ability that this defense honestly needs. Not that we've been great, but it's like this defense would love to have that extra sack, that extra pressure. That we just don't have, and especially when it comes down to, you talk about the USC defense, talk about the UW defense late in the game is when we start to get wear down. Well, why are you worn down? It's because the rotation is so light. We don't have as many players as we'd like to
Yeah.
have, and the guys have to play too many snaps. So hopefully getting Durfee back would be key. I want to see Deuce Davis, man. Big 9-9.
Yeah.
He's been, sounds like he's been practicing. I'd love to see a game like this where, especially where you see like an Isaiah Ward, a Deuce Davis, guys that can really get up and go, maybe a little bit more of a Showtime Holtzclaw, some of that speed off the edge, get up in Miller Moss's face and kind of put some pressure on him.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I know we haven't seen Davis much at all, and I'm hoping to see. He was one of the names coming from Arizona that I was very curious because he played a lot last year too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else you want to hit on the with the defense, or should we move to predictions?
Yeah, man, let's do it. You want me to go first, Mikey? What you think?
All right, we're gonna get into predictions. All right, Noah, what do you see happening if you were gonna look into your crystal ball and tell me how we're gonna be feeling Saturday night after this game?
All right, yeah. So this game opened up at USC -2. It's climbed to USC -2.5. The interesting piece here is I know that they've got a big time, powerful, like strike offense. So I mean, they can hit you from the 20-yard line all the way into the red zone. I mean, and they can hit you anytime. I think this game isn't as high scoring as I think people may think it is. I think the over under is like 55.5. I think this is going to be like a 24-21 type game, 25, 23 type, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know if it cracks 50. If UW can establish the run early, I think will lead to success late. I think UW can win this game. I'm not going
to score.
I'm not going to pick against UW because we're at home, and I think Montlake. Anytime you play USC, the fans come out, the boats are out, sailgating is going to be rolling. Give me UW 23, USC 20.
Okay. I like that. I like that pick. I think I'm seeing kind of similar. It's supposed to be nice Saturday, 52, partly cloudy. I see a 27-21 UW victory. And this is my if I had a Puerto Rican version of Mr. No, it's going to be you're going to see Damon Williams lead your dogs to a victory.
I love that. So hold on. So he comes in like second half. He comes in like fourth quarter for some drives. Like, what are your thoughts there? You just think
I think that I think you're going to see pressure on Will Rogers, or at least I think Will Rogers still gets the start, and he's going to struggle with the pressure, and they're going to have to make a move, and that's going to either happen second or third quarter. That's if it does happen, that's when it's going to happen, because you got to make the move when it still matters, and so it'll either be sometime during the second quarter or sometime during the third quarter, because I think you might see the effectiveness of Will Rogers go away if their defensive line is athletes like we expect them to be.
Do you think Jed kind of tipped his hand a little bit when some of the media asked him, like, what does it look like? Would you ever think about going to Damon? And I think his response was something along the lines of, his improvement has been really good over the first 8 weeks, and you've seen him really like step up. But I think he said something like, Like maybe not now, but you could in the future or something along those
He
lines.
said he came out, and was like, Damon is the future of this program.
Yeah, he's
And
going
he
to
said
be
that.
ready to take over at some point in time or something like that. Like,
Yeah,
like
it was
if you
very
rem-
vague.
It was. And if you remember, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is, do you remember when they asked him about how well TT Ali was playing, and they asked him about Hatchett coming back after, like, is he going to take over the starting role? And he very, very much came out and said, Landon Hatchett will be the starting center in 2025. You remember that?
Yeah,
And so this was like a perfect opportunity for him to say, like, well, Damon Williams will be the starting quarterback in 2025. But he didn't say
he
that.
didn't say that. He said he's going to be the starter when he's ready.
Yeah. And I wonder, man, is that time coming? And
Well, I know he's hearing it from everybody. He's online. He's one of those coaches that doesn't turn off the computer. So he's online and he sees it. And UW is, and the fan base and the alumni I know are all hammering for Damon Williams. And I think I am too, because I love his skill set, and I like how I feel more confident when he's quarterbacking. So
yeah, and I think you're spot on, man. I know there's been people calling for it for a while. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was something where I think that it should have happened weeks ago, because I really don't. I think Will's actually played
great.
Good enough to keep his starting spot. But I think where we are at 4-4, I think it might be time to see some drives for Damon Williams, the future of Husky football, man.
And I think he's going to speak a lot to Jed, because a proper leader can look at all of his pieces and realize that circumstances change the value of every piece. You know what I'm saying? And I think the circumstances that we're on, you can make the argument that Damon Williams might be better for these circumstances than Will Rogers, but we'll see. We're both doing podcasts. We're not coaching the dogs, so we don't know. We don't know.
At the end of the day, I've said it for years. Games are won and lost in the trenches. If we can dominate in the trenches, dude, we'll be in this game to the end, man. So let's have a good one, baby.
All right, I'm gonna shout out my guy Izzo. We'll see you back next week, my brother. Before we sign off here, I want to make sure you go hit the QR code beneath us. That's going to lead you right to everything you need to see with the Discord. The Discord is the best online Husky community. It's free to join, but if you pay that little monthly fee, the VIP has got all the information you want before it hits the presses. So for my guy Noah, for Izzo, who's out of town, I'm Mike Flaunt, and this is the Dubbed Up Podcast. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, baby. Yep. Izzo, have fun in Miami, baby.
Yeah.
They say Miami is a city where the heat is on all night. On the break of dawn.